Canada is one of the founding members of the 14-member Lima Group, established to try to help bring a peaceful resolution to the political crisis in Venezuela. Some perspective on that now. Isaac Nahón is from Venezuela and often writes about his home country. He's a professor in the Department of Communication at the University of Ottawa. What may have initially been seen as a political crisis in Venezuela is now a humanitarian crisis, an overwhelming humanitarian crisis, it seems. What more do you think the Lima Group, and particularly Canada, should be doing now?
Well, I think the Lima Group has played a very positive role in the crisis of Venezuela in terms of supporting, transition towards a democracy, and also in making clear that the situation, according to all international standards, is completely unacceptable. And Canada also has played a very constructive role. And I think what we expect now from the Lima Group and Canada is continue putting pressure on the Maduro regime in order to facilitate a transition towards a democracy and to have free elections in Venezuela. But there is another aspect, which is, as you mentioned, the humanitarian crisis. And I think Canada could play also a very important role, particularly helping those migrants, going to Colombia and Brazil. They're getting some help from the United Nations Refugee Agency, but I think Canada also could play a more important role in helping these people, to get health care, to get food, to get assistance while they are moving from Colombia or Brazil to other countries. Mm-hmm. And I think, unfortunately, we are going to see more and more what we are seeing right now in the second largest city of Venezuela, in Maracaibo. It's clear that the fact that they don't have electricity, they're having all kinds of issues, that will certainly push people, out of Venezuela. They're going particularly to the north of Colombia, where the United Nations has a transition camp in Rio Hacha. And unfortunately, we're going to see more and more people leaving the country. And I think Canada could play a very important role.
I guess my question too, though, is there a risk in getting, in focusing on the politics and the ideology involved here, when the humanitarian crisis runs so deep? Because Maduro still has supporters in the country.
Well, yeah, I mean, you can say that maybe he has, 10% of the population behind him, for many reasons. I mean, certainly you have public servants who are under a lot of pressure from the regime. Then you have part of the military also. And then you have these groups called, what we call colectivos, the paramilitary and the militia behind him. But this is really a minority. This is a small group of people and they are kind of in a situation where they don't want to leave, where they don't want to facilitate a transition towards democracy. But you are right. I mean, yes, there is the political crisis, but the issue here is the huge humanitarian emergency that Venezuelans are living, that has been recognized by all the UN agencies, UNICEF, the UN Commissioner of Human Rights, Michelle Bachelet, yesterday the Secretary General of the UN, Mr. Guterres. It's clear that we have a huge crisis affecting people at many levels: food crisis, health crisis. Then you have also violence crisis, migration, human trafficking crisis. But the question is how you can face these severe crises without a political change. It will be very, very difficult.
You've written about a Maduro propaganda campaign in Canada. What are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about a global campaign, a global propaganda machine that Chavismo has put in place and it has been very active in Canada. What they try to say is that, well, Venezuela is under attack of American imperialism, that actually Maduro is not responsible of this crisis, that at the end Chavez's legacy is very positive. But unfortunately, they are not saying the truth. And I think they are trying to fool the Canadian public, and they are trying to present a position where Maduro is kind of a victim of some kind of conspiracy, which is not true.
I was going to say, do you think it's got traction, that campaign?
No, I don't think they have that much traction, but they are playing a very negative role in trying to have this, this position where they want to present the truth or the right view on Venezuela, and this is very unfortunate. But this machine is very active everywhere in the world. When you look at the messages, when you look at the images they use, it's the same thing. I had a colleague from Helsinki in Finland telling me that they use exactly the same messages everywhere. And we should fight this propaganda. One of the roles of the Venezuela diaspora is to present what we consider to be the reality of Venezuela.
Thank you very much for your insight.
Thank you very much. Thank you.